Okay, so I just put together this Pop-Tart dough. This will, again, go into the fridge for a minimum an hour. We'll probably make some of these tonight on live, but I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna come back and do the layering. So these will go into the refrigerator. And then I realized I did have still a little bit left over from the other night on live, so I can show you really quick kind of how we did that process. Don't be scared to use flour. I was always scared to use too much flour because my grandma said, you know, the more flour you use, the drier your dough is going to be, which I get that. But in this case, I was struggling quite a bit my first time because I was avoiding flour and it really didn't work out in my benefit. And I do this with a pizza cutter. I just try to keep it as even as possible, which is pretty hard for me. So we'll just make this, see, in there. It's fine. Roll this out. So we had figured out the best plan of action was to do 2 separate pieces instead of trying to do a fold over situation. We did that Friday and it was a literal disaster. And I'm using this filling that I use for kolaches, which is just like kind of a jelly filling. This one is
like the blueberry one?
Yep, and I'm not sure if this recipe calls for doing an egg wash to seal my dough, but I don't use that. I don't find it necessary. But I do kind of pinch my dough together here and just get that filling sealed into the pocket. And then we crimp it with a fork. Kind of like you would with a ravioli. That's what they look like to me. All right, there's that. I'll see if I can snip from my live or something like that. But what I would normally do, egg wash this, put it on a lined baking sheet, cookie sheet, with either parchment paper or your silicone liner. Do an egg wash and bake at 350 degrees. For 20 to 30 minutes, just keep an eye on it because it just kind of depends on the level of brownness you want. And again, then I do kind of like a glaze, which I'll also include, but this is kind of how they turned out. So they have the pie filling in the middle. This one was an ugly one, but they just look like a toaster strudel kind of, and you can see on these I did do those extra folds. Okay, so I've just mixed up egg with just a teeny splash of water so I can do an egg wash. That helps get that golden brown sheen on it when we pull it out of the oven. I'm waiting for my oven to preheat right now. Okay, my oven is preheated to 350, so we're going to put these in and I will just keep an eye on them. I'll do a timer for, we'll start with 25 minutes and then I'll come back and mix up a quick icing. I kind of just vary on what icing or glaze that I put on these. You guys can kind of do whatever you want, and then I'll include the suggestion from the recipe as well, where I got this from. So I don't follow any kind of a recipe for making like an icing or a glaze. I just do some powdered sugar, usually a little bit of almond extract as well as vanilla. I was adding almond milk, but I haven't been adding it lately, and I like the thickness of the glazes that I've been making a little bit more. So just some almond extract, vanilla extract, powdered sugar, and I have this like corn syrup. I know, I try to keep things healthy around here, but I've had this corn syrup forever, I might as well use it up. And that does kind of give you more of that structured glaze that I prefer, to where it's not just running off and making everything soggy, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna add a tiny bit more of this. It on just those 2. It worked out perfectly that I accidentally forgot that leftover dough in my fridge so that I could kind of get this all done in one shot. I was supposed to edit videos last night, but I took the whole night off to do nothing but hang out with the kids. All right, so that's kind of the consistency that I prefer. So we will glaze those Pop-Tarts once they come out of the oven. All right, our timer went off after 25 minutes for our Pop-Tarts or toaster pastries. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. And it's good enough for me. I made this one so tiny. Again, these were just leftovers, but you can see how, since I did these extra rollouts with them, they got so many different like pastry layers, if that makes sense, but it didn't seal really well. So I'm not sure that I would repeat that same process again because they got very tall. So I'm just going to put on that little icing that we threw together. Gosh, these smell so good. So good. Now I'm gonna have to do a taste test and I'll be craving carbs all day. That's how it goes, right? Whatever you start eating right away in the morning is what you end up craving all day. All right. So we'll be fancy here and add a little sprinkle of powdered sugar. Okay. So messy, messy, messy. But that's how they look inside with that. This is again blueberry filling. But do you want a taste test, Ray? She just had these for her breakfast this morning.